Steve, Fred Durst. Hey man, you fucked up. You don't ever bite the hand that feeds in this business, bro. And your fucking manager, Soko Dad's a fucking idiot. Loser motherfucker going nowhere. You just chosen that path. Took you under my wing, brought you to my house. Fucking talked about your ass on radio and press. And you embarrassed like me and the Interscope family.
As you just heard, that was Fred Durst, frontman of Limp Bizkit and senior vice president of A&R at Interscope Records back in the day. He also had his own subsidiary label, Flip Records, under Interscope. Fred's job in artists and repertoire was to find talent for the label to promote and to help hone the artist's talent for future releases. One band Fred was eager to push was Taproot. However, Fred didn't find Taproot. Taproot found him. Because even before Limp Bizkit had dropped $3 Bill Y'all, some of the boys in Taproot had gone to a show that was headlined by Korn and supported by the up-and-coming Limp Bizkit. Frontman Steven Richards spoke to Loudwire about it, saying, "Mike and I saw Korn with Limp Bizkit before Limp Bizkit was actually releasing a record. So we had the drop on that. We were fans, we loved it, and we knew their record was coming out." So this would be around early 1997, I guess. Taproot was from a college town called Ann Arbor in Michigan. When students got their hands on albums in order to write and publish reviews, they would later sell them for beer money. The dudes in Taproot ponied up for $3 Bill Y'all, noticed that the band had an address for bands to send in their demos, and that's exactly what Taproot did. I'm not entirely sure which demo Taproot sent Fred. They had a bunch. Regardless, whatever the band sent Fred loved it, and he seemed to take a strong liking to Steven. Richard said, "Every time they'd come through town, we'd hang out, and he was really good to us. I'd sing with him on stage and stuff. We were itching to go, and he was getting really busy. He was cool though. I went to LA and stayed with him and got to sit through Interscope meetings about their second record coming out at the time." Drummer Jared Montague spoke about the band's time with Limp Bizkit and how Fred was courting them around the industry in his book, True Rockstars. "Our home base was Ann Arbor, and our rehearsal space was a tiny bedroom at the house where Steven and his mom lived. Within a couple weeks, the guy who we were watching on MTV every day, Fred Durst, pulled into Steven's driveway where we were all waiting. I was shocked and pumped. Fred came upstairs and said he intended to get us out of this jam room and on the road. We played 3 songs for Fred and he was really into them. While we were casually chatting, he was talking about how he had just been on the Howard Stern show, talking about hooking up with Carmen Electra. The whole thing seemed absolutely surreal. It didn't take long for Fred to ask us if we'd like to listen to his entire new album, Significant Other, which was due for release in a couple weeks. Being big fans, we replied affirmatively and listened intently and enthusiastically to the unreleased tracks. We heard the entire album from front to back, mostly with just Fred, but the other band members were in and out of the bus too, so we met and talked with all of them. Wes Borland, the guitar brains behind the Limp Bizkit operation, was very kind and complimentary of what he had heard from our band, which was awesome. Fred took his kindness one step further. When he and Kid Rock were filming MTV's The Diary Of series, Fred said this.
"Make things happen.
You tell him if it ain't for $3 million, you can stick it up his ass."
I just became the vice president of Interscope Records. I'm looking for bands, I'm signing bands.
Signed Taproot to a production deal, and 30 Seconds to Mars to a production deal.
Fred legit name dropped Taproot and 30 Seconds to Mars on national television. Naturally, the buzz around these up-and-coming bands was going to increase. Taproot had already had lunch with executives at Arista Records who were very impressed that the band sold 10,000 copies of their demos all on their own. So as much as Taproot wanted to work with Fred and Interscope, they were curious about what other offers were out there. But that's when everything turned ugly. From Montague's book, shortly after this exciting name drop, we received an actual hard copy of the production deal contract. It proposed that we record 3 songs with Interscope Records, and if the label liked how they turned out, we would sign a full record deal. However, if they didn't like the tunes, the label would retain the rights to the music and we wouldn't be able to use the songs on another record. Our opinion was that this seemed a bit shady because we would obviously want to record our best 3 songs on whichever label would take us. The fact that we would be prohibited from using the songs on another label if this didn't pan out didn't seem fair. And herein lies the problem and why Interscope ultimately played themselves. As much as Fred loved the band, all he could do was present the talent to the executives, such as Jimmy Iovine and the like. He couldn't sign anyone, and the deal was one that totally benefited the label. If they liked Taproot, great. If they didn't, Taproot gets screwed, and whoever wanted to sign Taproot gets screwed, which meant that Taproot would get doubly screwed. Ultimately, the band signed with Velvet Hammer Management, who also managed System of a Down. And then everything turned uglier. Velvet got Taproot to play a show with System in Grand Rapids, which then led to them playing for the legend Rick Rubin, who was in charge of American recordings. But when Atlantic Records came calling, the band went with them. Fred was pissed, so pissed that not only did he leave the voicemail you just heard on the answering machine belonging to Steven Richards' mom, but he also cut System from the Family Values tour. There was a rumor that the reason Serj Tankian's vocals were cut from Don't Go Off Wandering from Bizkit's Significant Other album was due to this feud. A rumor I totally believed because it made perfect sense. Why would anyone take his vocals from this track? Serj murdered that shit. So he was on the bridge and he did this weird spoken word thing. It's cooler than I'm making it sound. But if you don't know it, go look it up. It isn't mastered, and yet Serj sounds great. He really tied the song together in this weird and cool way, and it was way better than just having the instrumentals alone, which is ultimately what ended up being the studio version. But here's the thing. The album was released in June 1999. Taproot heard the album only a few weeks before it was released, with Fred. So maybe they just couldn't clear Serj's vocals with the label, but it doesn't seem that Fred cut Serj over the Taproot thing. Besides, Bizkit and System made amends later that year and went on tour. Fred said that he didn't have anything against anyone in System. He just hated their manager. You know, maybe it was him. Maybe it was the manager who failed to get Serj's verse on Don't Go Off Wandering. I have no clue. But I understand why Fred was pissed. He really did take Taproot under his wing, showed them around the industry, spoke about them in the press, wore their shirts, sang Comeback with Wes, who was also a fan of the band. Dude really cared. But I don't think Taproot saw what they did as snaking Fred, and I don't either. If Interscope is going to offer a shitty production deal, what do you expect the band to do? Sign and hope for the best when there were other labels who clearly had more respect? If Fred should be angry at anyone, it should be Interscope, because as we all know, neither Taproot nor 30 Seconds to Mars signed with them. I mean, 30 Seconds to Mars signed with Immortal and then signed with Interscope 16 years later, for fuck's sake. Then he tried to scare them by saying, oh, they'd be blackballed and you don't bite the hand that feeds. What do you mean? You mean Atlantic? They're feeding them. How the hell was he gonna blackball an entire record label? It didn't make sense. Not to mention the likes of Rick Rubin had a chance to sign Taproot, and they went with someone else. So clearly it wasn't anything personal. Taproot just did what was best for Taproot. But let's be real. Fred was clearly good at A&R. He got Stained and was about to get Taproot and 30 Seconds to Mars. He had an eye for talent. So when Taproot released Gift in June 2000 on Atlantic Records, were they worth the riffs and the angry voicemail? Was the album everything I think Fred thought it was gonna be? Yep. Nu metal, much like every genre, is one of hits and misses. The difference between nu metal and other genres is that it is open to such widespread ridicule because so much of it are relics of their time, only to be unearthed if one wants to induce vomiting. And I'm saying this as a huge fan of the genre. Taproot couldn't have named this album anything better because it is the logical conclusion of taking a sound and an ethos with the mindset of excellence, you produce a gift. When Smile initially whirs around and then clobbers you and then sings and then screams and then croons and then you rinse and repeat, you have to admit, the song tries and successfully creates that contagious smile with the passion that you long to succeed in your ways. By the way, that last part were the lyrics to the chorus, if you didn't know. Again and Again has the bounciness of a pop punk song, but DeWolf's down A tuning would prevent any question of the heaviness of this track. Richards appears to be reminiscent but also prophetic as he talks about the issues in friendships, something that would plague the band 13 years later and continued for another 2 more years as new drummer Nick Friedel left because of bad blood, and then DeWolf arguing with bassist Phil Lipscomb about who was and wasn't in the band anymore. One of my favorites, Emotional Times, continues on this theme of friendships turning sour and the importance of gaining objectivity to gain any resolution. But it also addresses our tendency to say that everything's fine when it isn't. The chopped up screams from Richards was perfection, as DeWolf, Montague, and Lipscomb bring the pain. Now is a song that I had on a playlist in high school, and I had the idea a few years ago to sneak it into a new playlist with friends. I figured they hadn't heard it in a while because I hadn't played it myself either. They tried to remember the name of the song, but when the chorus hit, oh, right. It's Now, though, of course. What I like about it is how melodramatic it is in the verses. So, the dude, he has to be with the girl, but he's gotta go. So please wait for him because they have to be together. But then everything gets so wickedly sinister when he starts screaming now. I mean, it's weird. As a kid, I liked it because it was as desperate as me. One Night Stand is probably the most positive song on the album. There's an instrumental part that serves as a bridge, and I can't help but think Serge Tankian would have killed that shit. Okay, I'm kind of being an asshole, but seriously, I used to think this song was about jerking off. No, younger me, it's about the fact that your life is unfolding before you and the strength you need to meet the new challenges are within you. At this point, Believed is a welcome reprieve from the onslaught of volume and aggression. Richards raps with such flair, sincerity, and ease, it makes it hard to believe that anyone who would be considered a guest in hip-hop could rival him. Again, the theme of rotting friendships comes up with Richards himself admitting to his own faults and pointing out the pointing fingers from those who think they're better than everyone else. I love Montague's drums in the intro to Meant to Be. He really stole the show there, and Richards returns to the hybrid of rapping and singing and sounding very comfortable as he waxes about his inability to see the truth of who he really is. But as difficult as it may be, he will come out laughing because that's just the way he is. My memory of I is early morning before school, reckoning with my own loss of control in my life. I couldn't belt out I hate myself, sometimes I love myself, because no one else was awake yet, and for them to wake up hearing me say that would probably be a problem. Actually, didn't I get in trouble for that? Anyway, Mirror's Reflection is the epitome of genius. I don't give a shit that I couldn't understand much of anything until years later. That song is sick. But as it turns out, the band had now combined their perspective on others with their own introspection and arrived at the conclusion that we are literally just like one another. We hate what we are, and we want to be something more than the nothing we think we are. It's too deep. Drag Down doubles down on that sentiment. I'm just a person like you, I'm just a fuck up that's true. It's a really fun track, despite it clearly having one feeling frustrated at the fact that they're so flawed. Comeback finally exposes the fleeting theme that's been permeating here and there throughout the album. It's guidance. There was something, a form of intelligence that seemed to help Richards in life that became missing as he became an adult. And Jesus fucking Christ, is that relatable? Maybe that's why I didn't love this song that much back in the day. It was a premonition. Years later, Taproot would become my go-to band when something was going horribly wrong. They reassured me that things would be okay and that I wasn't nuts. Finally, we have Impact, which unfortunately doesn't have much of an impact on me. Yeah, it's fine. It's alright. What's noteworthy about it is that the band is aware of their influence on others. It's a gift. Which leads to the final track, the real final track, Day by Day, the bonus track of the album. It's a great resolution to everything we just heard. Richards reckons with his duality as someone who cares, is sorry for his mistakes as a bad friend, but admits that he has fucked up and will fuck up again. I mean, if you think about it, his 20 to 25 foot drops into crowd surfing is pretty reckless, but it's pretty fucking metal. So, yeah. And he warned us, didn't he? I get raw, have fun. I love it. When asked if Taproot made the right decision to not sign with Durst and Interscope, drummer Jared Montague offered this via the Talk to Me podcast. I guess I'll just speak for myself on it. I think all the guys probably would agree. We definitely always made decisions that we felt were in the interest of keeping what we thought the integrity of the band should be. And that we didn't want to be a band that were just trying to make a hit song or something. I think that's probably more along the lines of where our relationship with Fred would have gone. Even talking to Aaron Lewis, I did finally get the guts to ask him on tour, hey, did Fred ever talk about us? Is there any bad blood there? And he said, nah, he is who he is. He does his thing, I guess the thing I definitely don't regret about not signing with Fred was that if we would have signed to his imprint, which I think was Flip on Interscope, then Flip would always have a piece of that action. I think that we definitely had a little more autonomy by not going with him. And I think that at least we're kind of proud that we're able to stick to our guns in that regard. Honestly, who knows what Durst really would have done? Maybe he would have let the integrity of the band run free. He is an artist after all. As they themselves said, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. Thanks for watching.